Hiya! And welcome back to No More Future, the game that teaches us that even Voldemort can have children. Haha, funny, Daphne doesn't have a nose. Anyways, let's just hop right in. I actually came to ask you for a favor. You're really going to say that with a straight face? After saying that I'm nothing more than a program pretending to be a person? He must be trying to rile you up on purpose, you reason. Yet the dog hardly winces at your harsh words. Nothing more? Hardly. And you say I'm the one undervaluing you. Besides, I don't see the fault you find with my logic. Programs are far more easily bargained with than humans. Whereas humans are easily blinded by emotions and ideals. Also follow rules and reason above all else. AIs follow rules and reason above all else. That is what makes them better for humans, in my humble view. Except I'm not a goddamn program! Though you have a feeling that your hateful words won't do much to dissuade him from thinking that. Moreover, it appears as though the St. Bernard was prepared for your objection to begin with. Are you, though? Or are you merely programmed to think that? Let me ask you this. Does a butterfly know that it's an insect? A bird that it's an animal? A house that it's a building? No, they do not. Because butterflies, birds, and houses aren't capable of thinking. Cogito ergo sum. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. A wise man once shared something along those lines. Many ages in our past. I definitely butchered that Latin phrase. Well, I'm glad you said that, because I'm pretty sure that I can think in spite of everything you said about me. True, humans and AIs alike are capable of thinking and pondering on their own existence more than any animal or object ever could. But how often do they actually do that? How often do they question whether their beliefs are true and whether they're not simply deluding themselves? How often have you stopped to consider whether your thoughts are truly your own? Whether you're not simply programmed to behave and respond a certain way? Assuming you ever have, that is. Whether your thoughts are truly your own. That you're afraid is something you never quite stop to consider. Could it be that you really cannot tell your own thoughts from those of others anymore? Is your situation truly that desperate? I said, shut up! Though you're more uncertain than ever, you're not going to let this man take advantage of that. Are we sure he's with the FBI and he's not some sort of philosopher? It'd probably be smarter to remain silent, given everything he's supposedly capable of, but you're too overwhelmed by your anger and loathing to pay common sense any mind at the moment. My name is Isaac. I've been Isaac my whole life, and the transition certainly didn't change that. You can't strip me of my identity just like that, pretend like you know what my head's like when you're just as uncertain of the truth as I am. The canine cackles once again at your upset expression and rage-fueled words, a piece of bacon trembling in the air against his fork as he does so. Why do I keep hitting thee? No, please. Do you truly trust your emotions all that much? You don't even know if they're yours to begin with. I said shut up already. My thoughts and memories are just as real as I am. Oh, don't put words in my mouth. I never meant to imply that your memories aren't real by any means. Isaac really did exist at some point, and they did live the life that you recall so dearly. But is your mind truly the continuation of that human, or are you merely programmed to think that you are? Have you ever stopped to ponder whether those memories ever belonged to you at all? Even if the transition succeeded and there truly was a soul inside you, who's to say it's Isaac's? For all we know, it could be someone else's. Who's to say Pandora didn't implant Isaac's memories in you to fool you into thinking... Enough! I'm getting really tired of all your hypotheticals. Your sudden rebuttal somehow manages to stun the St. Bernard for a moment, leaving you some wiggle room to debunk his ridiculous statements. Until you're sure of what you're saying, you can keep all your theories and hypotheses to yourself. I never ask for them, nor do I need them. I'm done listening to your nonsense. Now get the hell out of my house. Yeah. It's true that Bradbury raises some good points and asks you some riveting questions, but you're in no mood to take any of that into consideration right now. You can confront your fears and worries at a later time. Right now, all you care about is giving this man his just desserts. You spot the dog scratching his chin with his free hand, mulling over your words. He then smiles nonchalantly as he suddenly stands up, leaving his fork and empty plate behind. Fair enough. I do apologize for making you so emotional, Isaac. It was never my intention. I assure you, all I ever wanted was for you to consider a few things I thought you might find enlightening. I didn't expect you to react so harshly to my words. As if. The canine chuckles once again at your comment. Well, I can't say I don't deserve this reaction, given everything I said. In hindsight, I should have expected it. Of course, I don't regret any of it. Sometimes, people need to be told things they find disagreeable in order for them to learn. Will you get out already? Patience. I did say I wanted to ask for your help first. Forget it. The only help I'll be glad to give you is a kick in your ass as I shove you out the door. The synthetic in the corner of the room, who's been silent up until now, suddenly stands upright as if reacting to your threat. You have to admit, he looks quite intimidating like that. However, before he can do anything, Bradbury simply flicks his finger at the android, who immediately returns to his corner with a brooding look in his eyes. Now, no need to speak without thinking, Isaac. Some people might take your jokes more literally than you might like. You really don't like the implication of that statement, though you do your best to hide how unsettled you are from the canine. Why do I keep flicking the pop filter? St. Bernard, on the other hand, merely begins to walk around the living room like a politician in the midst of a speech. Honestly, I'm only suggesting you help me out because it's in your best interests to do so. My best interests? As if you even cared about my interests. Why, as a matter of fact, I do, and I think you know what they are as well. You have no idea what the dog's talking about, though it doesn't look like he intends on leaving you in the dark for long. I've shared with you a lot of concerns earlier that you could not quite debunk. A lot of questions that you had no real answer to. Of course, you're right to say that I cannot know for certain whether you're alive or not, just like I'm right in pointing out that neither do you. But you know who should know the answers to all those questions from earlier? At least this time you feel like you know what the agent before you is trying to hint at. Pandora. Bingo! Of course. That doesn't mean his query is any less stupid because of it. Well, tough luck for you then. They're still busy figuring it out as we speak. Instead of acting surprised at your rebuttal, the dog merely raises an eyebrow as lazily as can be. And you believe that? Another question whose sole purpose is to fill your head with doubts and second guesses. Of course you believe them. You wouldn't be here if you didn't believe them, and they've given you no reason to stop so far. I have no reason to doubt them. No, you have no reason to trust them. That is what you cannot seem to grasp. Do you even know what sort of company Pandora is? What kind of question is that? Well, since you don't seem to have an answer ready, let's start with the obvious. Pandora, like I said, is a company. And companies you can likely figure out on your own, like money. I'm pretty sure the nearest elementary school is a few blocks down. Bradbury merely shakes his head at your joke, not intending in the slightest to stop treating you like a child. Of course, Pandora doesn't lack money in the slightest. They've been doing fantastically well for as long as they've existed, with a few minor hiccups along the way. They had no reason to begin working on a project as risky, costly, or, forgive me for saying this, absolutely ludicrous as synthetics. Yet, they had no problem investing billions of dollars just to create you, and about 1,000 times that on the entire project overall. That is a little suspicious, you'll give him that. Even you still don't know what could have inspired them to commit so many resources to this end. Naturally, for us at the FBI, that's more than a little concerning, especially considering that the last time they invested so much in an emerging technology, Kronos almost wiped out the entire planet. We believe Pandora may have ulterior motives to develop this technology, or at the very least, that they do not know the extent to which it can backfire on them and on the rest of the world. It's the only sensible explanation as to why they decided to invest in this project in the first place. Bradbury? I don't know how to describe him. He's existing. Now that's ridiculous. Does the FBI really think Pandora's going to end the world or something? Judging by the confidence in the man's voice, that very well appears to be the case. That's why I need you to find out the answers to all these questions. It's not just about clarifying whether you exist or don't exist. It's a matter of national security. We need to understand to what extent Pandora plans to use synthetics, And you, thanks to your proximity to the leading minds behind the project, will figure that out for us. We know that you have a close relationship with the mind behind this beast, Dr. Shelley. We could really use an agent as unsuspectable as you working her from the inside. The canine suddenly stops shuffling around and turns to face you once again, an inviting smile on his lips. Having made myself abundantly clear, won't you collaborate with us? You'd be lying if you said that the St. Bernard's words haven't made an impact on you. Whether through fear, doubt, or simply through making good points, he's managed to make you doubt everything you thought you knew about yourself and your circumstances in just a short 20 minutes. Things that you thought were certain or that you at the very least had faith in now look like mere dreams or delusions. You can't tell what you're supposed to believe in now, or even what you're supposed to think. Bar one thing. Go fuck yourself. You've been waiting to say that for quite a while now. Perhaps it's wrong to be so blunt before a government official, especially one in the same room as Harlan over there, but you cannot bring yourself to care now. It was high time someone put that vitriol-spewing dog back in his place, and you weren't going to wait a moment further for that to happen. The dog, for what it's worth, simply raises an eyebrow at your outburst once more, hardly feeling intimidated by your sudden display of emotion. Excuse me? You heard that right. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. I'm done indulging this nonsense. All you've done ever since breaking into my house is dismiss and insult me for the mere sake of it, and you think that's enough to convince me to aid you? I don't care how important you think this whole thing is. You can bring all your questions to others if you really care all that much. Why, that's rather bold of you to say. Will you truly be of the same mind come the time when reality proves me right? If that time ever comes, you'll feel like a fool for getting me pissed instead of explaining your case to me like a regular person. As if I was a regular person, rather. Now get out. You're wasting your time. Silence. For the first time since Bradbury stormed into your apartment, true silence envelops the room. Neither the agents standing guard by the door nor the synthetic brooding in the corner are making any noise, merely giving you weird looks as you defiantly stand before Bradbury's inscrutable mug. The big dog himself takes quite a while to answer as well. He merely continues scratching his chin before you, seemingly pondering on your words and how to reply. Until his pensive look suddenly breaks into a cocky grin. And then a deafening cackle. What's so funny? I said get out! You really misunderstood your position to the very end, didn't you, Isaac? Do you truly believe yelling at me is going to get you anywhere? Get us anywhere? His expression darkens considerably in the span of a second, as devilish chortles continuously escape his lips like demons from a portal to hell. You notice Harlan leave his cozy spot in the corner and start heading in your direction, cracking his metallic joints as he does so. Of course not. This conversation is over when I say it's over. And believe me, we evidently have much to discuss still. You retreat as much as you can while the dog steadily advances towards you, backed up by the large synthetic behind him. You don't scare me! I don't need to scare you. I just need to convince you. And believe me, I can be very persuasive when I... Hello? Anyone in there? All of a sudden, a familiar female voice starts shouting from beyond the entrance to your apartment, surprising everyone present. The entire room freezes as you figure out the identity of the woman that's beckoning for you. Mary? What? How? What are you doing here? In spite of your alarmed tone, Mary's response is calm and condescending. Just came to check up on you is all. Is it fine if we come in? You turn to face the dog and his bodyguard once again for a second. The former's busy adjusting his ties if nothing happened, while the latter has quietly returned to his spot near the wall. Despite that, however, the tension in the room is all but gone, and you can tell that Bradbury's merely waiting for something to happen before resuming his talk with you once again. I don't know if it's the right time to... Wait, we? You didn't realize there was someone else outside. Who could that be? Yeah, me. And him. All of a sudden, the door swings open with a crack, sending the two agents guarding it toppling onto the ground like ragdolls. Mary enters the room with the confidence of a student who just aced her test, followed by a viridescent Drake with a grim look on his face. Mary? Jasper? After all the stress you've had to endure, even the sight of the mean-looking lizard is enough to relieve you of some of your anxiety. Of course, the feeling is hardly mutual. That's Mr. Morgan to you, android. The circumstances haven't changed that. Ignore him. He's just a little cranky in the morning. We heard a commotion and we thought it'd be wise to check up on you. Still, who could have expected all this? You're not sure how they supposedly heard everything from all the way in New Relay. However, details and specifics are far from your biggest concern at present. All that matters is that you clearly don't have to brave Bradbury all on your own anymore. Jasper inspects the room from top to bottom with his gaze, his aura of seriousness never faltering even for an instant. Judging by that fire in his eyes, he's clearly not pleased by what he sees, and neither is the Siamese woman by his side. My. A party so early in the morning? That has got to be breaking a rule or two. I know the FBI hosts some killer parties, but I never imagined they'd organize one at someone else's house. I must admit, I'm impressed. The FBI agent seems hardly impressed by the two's appearance, opting to meet them head-on with a sarcastic smile and a mocking tone. Well. Look who's come to say hi. The leaders of Pandora and its synthetic department themselves. How strange to see the two of you outside of my office. It's been so long since we've had one of our chats over your funny little pastimes. Oh, don't act all cocky with me, Ray. Were you half as smart as you claim to be? You would have expected me to come through those doors a long time ago. Meanwhile, the FBI sticking their noses where they don't belong. Now that's something you can see coming from a mile away. I suppose I should feel somewhat guilty for stealing your job. After all, spying on poor Isaac here is your prerogative for a change. Mary looks ready to retort once again, but is quickly stopped by her stern superior. Are you two going to stop squabbling like chickens anytime soon? We didn't come here to play around like children at the park, and neither did you, so tell us what in the world you're doing here, unauthorized I might add, before I report you to your superiors for a breach of contract. Even when being shouted at by a man as frightening as Jasper, Bradbury remains surprisingly cool and composed. Ah, Mr. Morgan, if you wanted to call my superiors, you only needed to ask. With a wide grin on his face, Bradbury begins to pretend as though his right hand is a smartphone, which he holds close to his ear as it annoyingly rings. Hello? Oh, really? He uses his left hand to cover his fictitious phone's microphone as he turns to face Jasper once again, barely containing his laughter as he does so. It's for me. Very funny. I'm sure your buddies in Congress will love that joke. Oh, please, don't be so serious all the time. It's bad for your neck fluff. The dog drops the comedic act and returns to his more familiar professional facade. I'm merely exercising my supervisory duties by checking up on little old Isaac here is all. Nothing more, nothing less. Supervising the synthetics is our duty, Bradbury. And supervising you is mine, Mr. Morgan. Wait, what? What's he talking about? Before you can ask for an explanation, Bradbury's already well into his response to Jasper. Routine inspections are nothing new, as you're quite clearly well aware. Just because we never did them on synthetics before doesn't mean we don't have the authority to do so. I assure you this is all perfectly legal, not to mention quite understandable in light of recent events. Jasper unceremoniously raises an eyebrow as he realizes what the dog's referring to. You saw the video. Of course I did. Who didn't? A despicable affair, really. Those officers truly overstepped their boundaries, don't you think? Trampled all over protocol and made a fool of their force as a result. Jasper definitely didn't expect that kind of response, that's for sure. He likely didn't foresee Bradbury to side with you on that whole debacle. And neither did you, for that matter. There's not much we at the Bureau can do about that, sadly, aside from checking up on the poor victim and making sure that they're alright. Surely you understand why I did that. Isn't that right, Isaac? You try to avoid meeting the man's gaze as he inquisitively looks your way, instead keeping your eyes fixed on the ground below. You could say many things right now, for sure. With Bradbury and Harlan both still in the room, you feel as though your silence is more important than ever. Luckily, Mary quickly picks up on your distress without a need for you to voice in. She begins to rail into Bradbury harder than ever before, much to the man's shallow surprise. He's doing wonderfully, thank you, and he'll do even better once he doesn't have to see your ugly mug around anymore. Jasper does his best to keep the furious-looking woman at bay while he argues with the agent in a milder, though certainly not friendlier manner. If you truly did come here to check up on a synthetic, then I'd say you've spent more than enough doing that as of now. I would advise you and your entourage to leave the premises effective immediately before we have to report you for trespassing on private property. You hesitantly wait for Bradbury's response, for him to turn to face them once again with a devious look in his eyes, ranting that he'll never let let either of them leave. However, much to your surprise, none of that ever comes to happen. Very well, I don't see any reason why I should stay any longer either. With a flick of his fingers, his entire team begins heading out the door, taking the long way around the Drake and the cat standing befuddled in the middle of the room. You're leaving? Just like that? Of course. That's what you wanted, wasn't it? After all, we'll have plenty of opportunities to discuss things again in the future. I can afford you a little rest while you ponder on everything we talked about so far. Harlan gives you a final evil stare as he comes near you, but ultimately leaves without making a fuss, merely shaking his head in annoyance as he does so. Mary is, of course, not very pleased. You are never getting close to Isaac again without our consent, Bradbury. Making promises you can't keep again, Dr. Shelley. Not surprising, coming from the director of the synthetics department. You spot Mary tightening her fists as Bradbury approaches the exit himself, a wide grin on his mug once again. Just before he can cross the threshold between your apartment and the hallway outside, however, he turns to face the three of you a final time. Before I go, what now? There's one last question I wanted to ask, actually. The man's expression becomes surprisingly serious all of a sudden, putting all three of you on edge. We received reports of some disturbances around these parts last night. Some people started a fight a fair distance away from here. Remains of a baseball bat found near the scene are clue enough that the criminals employed deadly force against each other, though no bodies have currently been found. Naturally, we at the Bureau are taking this very seriously, and given that you live nearby, I thought I'd ask Isaac if he knew anything about this. You're too scared to say a word. You're worried that anything you say may and will be used against you if you aren't careful. After some time, however, Jasper forces your hand. Well, do you? Judging from the impatience in his tone, he expects you to answer immediately. Well, I did hear some noises last night while I was coming home, but nothing that resembled a fight, just cranky door hinges and the like. You've never lied harder before in your life, you reckon. If you were still human, your heart would probably burst straight out of your chest right now. Luckily, your android nerves are cold enough that none of the people present have anything to object to your account. I see. Well, that's that, I guess. Thank you for your assistance. We'll continue investigating the incident, and we'll be sure to alert you of any further developments. With that said, Bradbury turns towards the hallway once again, giving you one last look before leaving you for good. Take care, Isaac. With that, the man closes the door behind him, leaving the three of you alone in your living room. As you hear his footsteps growing lighter and lighter, so does the heavy burden you feel weighing on your shoulders. Is he gone? Seems like it, at least. Thank goodness. You have no idea how relieved I am. The things he... Dr. Shelley, I need the whole building EMP'd within the next 2 minutes. The suddenness of Jasper's command is enough to shock you to your core, so much so that you don't know how you're even meant to reply. Luckily, it appears as though Mary knows just what to do in this situation. No need to order me around. I was already on it before you even thought about it. I'll be back before you know it. Without explaining herself any further, the scientist runs out of the door with the speed of a cheetah. You're not sure where she's going, but you thought you saw her fiddling with a strange device she must have taken out of her pocket as she left. Seeing as though you're not going to get any explanations from the cat, you might as well try and get something out of the Drake. Hold on, EMP? What's going on? Electromagnetic pulse, a shockwave. Do I really need to explain what this is as well? No, I know what an EMP is, but I still don't know why you'd need one all of a sudden. Jasper scoffs at your inquiry, evidently unhappy to answer your queries, which, to him, must equate to those of a kindergartner. Do you really think those morons came here to drink tea and play board games? There are likely dozens of hidden cameras recording us as we speak, placed all throughout the apartment. And probably the rest of the building as well, if I had to guess. You have no idea how the thought never occurred to you before. As ridiculous as it seems, you feel as though you understand today's events a little better. You understand why those agents bothered to refurbish your apartment, why they were here well before you awoke. All they ever wanted was for you to lower your guard and say something incriminating that they could record. I see you understand now. Good. We cannot afford to leave all these illegally placed devices lying around the place. That's why we're going to overcharge the mag reactor powering this building and disable all electronics within a 2-mile radius the hard way. It's the only way to be certain that nobody will eavesdrop on our next conversation. Wait! You're going to overcharge the mag reactor? You can do that? You don't know what exactly that entails, but you cannot imagine that being very good. Or very legal. Can they even do that? As far as you know, this whole building is the property of another corporation. Can they really get away with breaking someone else's tech so brazenly? Of course we can. Who do you take us for? Well, that's reassuring. Or it is, until another thought strikes you. But wait, if you disable all electronics, what's going to happen to... you? Mary greets you with some confident words of reassurance as she returns from her duties. In her hand lies the same device she pulled from her pockets earlier, hovering her finger over its screen. You'll be fine. You can rest assured of that. Even a lightning strike wouldn't be enough to pierce through your defenses. Though you might still feel a little tickle. You realize that she's readying herself to activate the device a little too late to stop her. Hold on. At least let me get out of here first. You felt the entire building tremble slightly, as if it had been caught in the midst of an earthquake. The lights briefly flickered on and off repeatedly while a surge of invisible electricity coursed through the building, likely wrecking everything in its path. You check yourself all over to ensure that the EMP left no lasting damage on you. Other than a light tremble in your legs, it looks like you survived the ordeal wholly unscathed. Dear Lord, was that it? Indeed it was. That should take care of our little intruder problem. You take a swift look around the apartment, where the damage caused by the EMP is most evident. There seems to be a few broken light bulbs in the kitchen near the stove, and your computer and mini-fridge look utterly fried. But that's all as far as the living room is concerned, surprisingly enough. You have expected the entire room to go up in flames as all the devices Bradbury installed in your sleep blew up from under the couch or behind a poster. But so far, everything looks mostly in order. You must have hidden their toys even better than you thought. However, with the entire complex having been fried from within, you don't expect they'll prove useful either way. It relieves you to know that those people won't be allowed to spy on you quite so easily anymore. However... Isaac? Everything okay? Yeah, I'm alright. I was just noticing all the damage that EMP caused is all. If this is what it did to my place, I can't even begin to imagine what it did to everyone else's. I know you were trying to protect me from Bradbury, but I can't help but feel as though we roped too many innocent people into this mess as a result. You're especially worried for your friends a few blocks up, the last people you wanted involved, and yet they'll likely suffer because of all this all the same. Oh, don't worry about them. We've got them covered. Indeed, we'll be reimbursing the residents of all the damages in no time, and I'll have Mary come up with some ridiculous explanation to justify the blast. These people didn't deserve this annoyance, I'll grant you this much. But we'll see to it that they're taken care of nonetheless. The Drake's words are more than enough to put your mind at ease. You definitely didn't expect him to care so much about the locals' needs, especially after how arrogantly he dismissed yours just yesterday. However, it's nice to know that he had everything planned out from the start at least. Looks like Daphne and Apollo are in good hands, although you'll likely end up apologizing to them for the trouble either way. Well then, with Bradbury's toys taken care of and your mind at ease, you can finally tell me what in the ever-loving fuck is going on. He turns to face you personally, his eyes angrier than you've ever seen them. You have 3 seconds to tell me everything about what happened yesterday night before I get really angry. Last night? Don't play dumb with me. I know something happened. It was clear as day on this fool's face. Mary turns to face the other way, avoiding Jasper's gaze as if it were the plague. Luckily, it didn't seem as though Bradbury noticed it, but I did. So start talking before I toss both of you into the elevator shaft. Looks like there's really no way out of this one. Though you fear for both your safety and your friends', the only thing you can do is come clean about your actions. Well, where do I start? From the beginning. We have plenty of time to go through everything. Alright, I'll be as thorough as can be then. I was walking home last night. I then spent some time at their place and returned home soon after. When I woke up, those lunatics were already in the living room. And that's all I can remember. Well, mostly everything you remember. You took a few creative liberties with your account of the events, so as to try and minimize Jasper's anger. Some things you only glossed over briefly, like Natalie's involvement in the whole affair, while others you avoided mentioning entirely, especially towards the end. You don't know how useful it'd be to mention that shade from yesterday to the pair before you. given that you're still wholly unsure of whether it truly was there or not. Until you're certain, it's probably best to keep that detail to yourself. Your decision was clearly sound, as even your partial recounting of the events is enough to send the Drake into a fit of rage. And you knew about all this, and you didn't find it important to inform me immediately? His rage towards the Siamese cat is practically palpable. Even yesterday, he never quite reached these levels of barely contained fury. How was I supposed to inform you? You were already asleep by the time I found out. I said, don't play dumb with me. Did you suddenly forget emails and notifications exist? You could have alerted me of this as soon as I woke up, instead of letting me discover this in the midst of that face-to-face with Bradbury. Assuming you didn't intend on keeping me in the dark about this affair entirely. Judging by the annoyed look on the feline's face, that might have actually been her plan all along. What was she even thinking? Oh, relax already. The situation's not as dire as you think it is. Bradbury made it abundantly clear that he merely suspects a fight broke out last night. There's no reason to be so agitated. Dr. Shelley, you've been dealing with the FBI for even longer than I have. Are you truly so thick in the head that you still haven't learned anything about them? The FBI never suspects anything. They know. If they weren't sure Isaac was involved in that incident, they never would have bothered bringing it up to us in the first place. The only reason why we didn't leave the building in handcuffs is because they don't have any solid evidence to prove it. Drake's words, though certainly frightening, are also somewhat confusing. Wait. If they don't have any proof, that means we're good, right? Jasper focuses his rage on you once again now that you've given him the perfect opportunity to do so. Do you really think the FBI, of all things, cares about proof? Proof only matters to the citizens, the justice system, the government, and so on. Those who actually care or should care about legality and accountability. But for the feds, for them, proof is just trifling paperwork. A little afterthought they can present to their superiors so nobody questions their involvement or actions. If they know you've done something worth ruining your life over, and they do, they will do everything in their power to destroy you. It doesn't matter what they have to do in order to achieve this goal. And you know who must protect you from that? Who's going to cover up for your reckless, idiotic decision? Us, of course. Mary does her best to defend you, in spite of how little ammunition she has at her disposal. Don't be so harsh on him. All he did was defend himself and an innocent bystander from a band of crooks. We should be celebrating that, not harassing him for it. Sadly, it seems like Jasper won't be so easily swayed. You think context or good motives will be enough to protect him? Have you been living under a rock for the past 40 years? Those things have been irrelevant for ages now, as both of you should well be aware of, or are you truly nothing more than overgrown infants? The man is right, as much as it pains you to admit. You had those same thoughts this morning as well, while you were mulling over last night's events. You thought you'd be safe because there was no chance that those thugs would have confessed to their crime, but now that the FBI knows you were there trying to defend yourself, maybe this is the perfect time to remind you both that self-defense is illegal. The law is quite clear. Anybody who commits acts of violence for any reason is immediately judged as a criminal and sentenced to jail. It doesn't matter whether you're the aggressor or not. The court won't see the difference. Mary sighs at Jasper's explanation, tapping her shoe against the floor in an attempt to express her rage. Ugh, what a stupid law! Who even thought that this was a good idea? Your heroic views are, sadly, very much outdated. No court in this country will recognize Isaac's actions as just, and no lawyer will be able to defend him if it's discovered that he was involved in any capacity. The Drake turns to defend you once again, an irate look in his eyes. Hence, why I was quite clear with you yesterday that you were to avoid any and all confrontations at all costs. Now look what you've done. I don't know what you were hoping to achieve there, but I hope you're proud of yourself. Not everyone could sink an entire company's image and reputation as consistently and effortlessly as you. As much as it pains you to say it, Jasper's perfectly right. You really did jump the gun yesterday. You thought it would have been fine because of what Mary said earlier that day, and because of your reactions for helping out Apollo. But you can see now that all you did was fall into yet another pitfall. If you knew you were only going to hurt yourself, perhaps nothing would have changed. But now that you know that everyone, including Mary and Natalie, could find themselves in trouble because of you, that's another thing entirely. You're right, I definitely didn't think this through. Come on, Jasper, I told you not to be so harsh. Look, you're scaring the poor kid. The feline scientist steps between the two of you once again, a confident smirk on her face. Besides, I think you're exaggerating things again. Have you already forgotten our conversation from yesterday? Isaac is untouchable, plain and simple. Proof or no proof, involvement or no involvement, it really doesn't matter. There's nothing the FBI can do about it either way. You do recall her saying that back at her office the other day all too well. It's because of her words that you didn't think too much about your involvement in this mess initially. Jasper's words made you think for a moment that what she said did not apply in this situation, but judging by the pride in her voice, Mary seems to vehemently disagree. In case you need a reminder, Isaac here currently doesn't exist according to our legal system. Until synthetics are sorted out as either human beings or objects without a sentience, nothing that he does can be considered a crime. Hence, Bradbury's threats are all null and void. There's nothing any of us needs to be afraid of. You've got to hand it to Mary. She's always standing by your side whenever you need her. Were she not here, you'd be at the complete mercy of the venomous Drake before you. Whose gaze seems to suddenly soften somewhat upon pondering on the woman's words, much to your surprise. That much is true, I'll give you that. Wait, you're saying she's right? You didn't expect Jasper to capitulate so quickly, especially after the way he treated the both of you since this conversation began. You kind of expected him to keep professing your guilt until he stormed off your apartment in a fit of rage. You are, indeed, untouchable, but not quite as thoroughly as that moron thinks you are. It took only a second for the man's anger to burn bright in his eyes once more. Much to your surprise, this time, however, you can tell that it's more subdued, more calculating. Like he's getting ready to hammer the final nail in the doctor's metaphorical coffin. Let's start with the obvious. Being immune to the law means nothing as far as PR is concerned. Oh please, we already settled this yesterday. The people are supporting Isaac. Or will eventually. Not if they find out Isaac was involved in an all-out brawl, they won't. It's one thing to refuse to comply with an officer non-violently one time. But beating up 3 people, no matter the reason, is an entirely different beast. When people see how many incidents Isaac's been involved in as of late, the gears in their heads will start turning. They'll think Isaac's some kind of synthetic vigilante, or just a straight-up thug. Those of them who fear synthetics are just Kronos' next incarnation will have a field day with these theories. And I don't need to explain what'll happen to both this project and this company if that happens. You can't say you disagree with Jasper's prophecy. All these expectations are just as reasonable as Bradbury's objections from earlier. In your heart, you know that this is all just another ludicrous conspiracy theory, as does Mary. And yet, neither of you can quickly find an argument to counter Jasper's with. But let's just say that none of this happens. Let's say that the public is entirely supportive of our superhero over here, and that the FBI is too lazy or to bother arresting us for engineering another weapon of mass destruction. Not even that could protect Isaac from the flaws within your untouchable argument. Namely, the fact that our synthetics aren't untouchable at all. Once again, you have no idea what Jasper's talking about. What do you mean? Even you said that I can't commit crimes anymore, so in theory, I should be safe. And you are, yes. From the law. While you're still in the dark as to Jasper's true intent, the cat appears to be more or less aware as to what he's referring to. Huh. So you actually read those papers I gave you. Now that's surprising. I have, because unlike you, I actually care about the finer details. And you know what I found? There's a brief silence as the Drake tries to steady his breath, clearly anticipating your reaction at his final argument. It's true that you cannot be considered a criminal as far as the law is concerned, but neither can you be considered a victim. Your little non-existent gimmicks work both ways, you see. You may be unable to commit crimes as you're not formally considered a person, indeed, but because of that very reason, no one can commit crimes against you either. But then, anything anyone does to you for any reason is fair game, yes. Theft, assault, termination, these are all merely some of the crimes that you have no legal way of protecting yourself from. You are entirely defenseless. Oh no. The situation is even worse than you initially thought. And your expectations were already as low as they could get. Is Jasper truly implying that anyone could jump you at any moment for any reason and suffer no consequences whatsoever? That essentially means that you're a billion-dollar living target for haters and poachers alike. Is there really nothing I could do if that were to happen? Of course there is. Beat the ever-living crap out of them before they do the same to you. Simple. Mary's reply is swift and tactless, befitting of the gesture-like cat, though her words sound more like a joke than a real answer. The tone of her voice leaves no doubt in your mind as to her seriousness. You may not be a weapon of mass destruction, as Jasper described you earlier, but as an android, you still pack quite a punch. Nobody can mess with you, and if they do, they'll encounter a much stronger resistance than they could possibly handle. Even ability bearers will have trouble dealing with you. So, as far as I'm concerned, you're perfectly safe in my book. Being unaffected by the law isn't a disadvantage. It's an asset. The feline seems quite sure of herself, that's for sure. At least for someone who unironically suggested you treat any would-be assailants to an extreme makeover. In spite of how absolutely preposterous her plan sounds, you have to admit that it is a viable option at your disposal. It's not like there's much else that you could do to protect yourself, after all. Especially in these times where everyone seems to have some reason or another to be mad at you. Needless to say, Jasper is nowhere near the same mind as you. Tell that to all the people that are going to freak out as soon as they find out what Isaac did in the last 2 days alone. Oh, chill out. As long as nobody finds out, everything will be fine. Though the lady tries to play that out as yet another of her jokes, Jasper is far from amused. And, truth be told, so are you this time. That is all you can say? Pray that no one finds out about this? This is exactly why you cannot be trusted at the helm of this company, much less this project. And what are you going to do about it? Go cry to the owners again? The Drake scoffs at the woman's retort, merely crossing his arms as he regains his hold on his emotions. As a matter of fact, I've already updated them on the situation yesterday. You have? You don't like the sound of that. Even Mary looks at least a little shook at this discovery. Of course! I did say someone had to inform them of all the stunts you two have been pulling as of late. And that someone might as well be you personally. Isaac, too? Knowing that you're going to be involved is enough to put your friend severely on edge. She silently bites her lips as Jasper delivers an answer to her question. That is correct. You didn't intend on speaking on his behalf in the event that he's called to explain himself, did you? What am I saying? Of course you did! You always... Oh, why do I even bother? I can clearly see that I'm wasting my time arguing with you two. With the utmost contempt in his voice, the dragon turns his back on both you and your Siamese friend. The cleanup crew will be here any minute now, and someone needs to show them around this place, as well as take care of the locals' issues. God forbid I let either of you be in charge of that. We will continue this conversation in front of the owners. Right now, I need to focus on repairing the damages to the building. The Drake gives the two of you a final scornful look before he begins to leave your apartment. I advise the two of you to keep your schedules free in the coming days. When the owners come calling, you better drop everything and be ready to answer. On a scale from 1 to 10, my friends, we're fucked. With heavy steps, the Drake makes his way out of your apartment, an ever-annoyed gaze in his eyes. An awkward silence fills the room now that only you and Mary remain in it, but not for long. Ugh, what a loudmouth! Who does that jerk even think he is? And he always complaining about something and making up problems that don't exist. If he only stayed in his lane, He wasn't wrong, Mary. The feline seems very surprised to hear you speak out against her. Really? You're siding with him? After everything he said about you? Can you stop pretending like everything's fine for a moment? For fuck's sake? Though you hate having to yell at Mary, given that she's spent the last 20 minutes defending you from Jasper and Bradbury both, you can't help but be at least a little angry at the cat lady after everything that just happened. You claimed over and over that this is nothing worth losing our minds over, but it is! I got into an actual fight yesterday, Mary. A regular person would be going to jail for that right now, no matter whose side they were on. And how is that my fault? You're taken aback by the woman's sudden interjection, which completely knocks the wind out of your argument. Are you saying I'm the one that forced you to intervene? Is that why you're mad at me? Because I never said you needed to pick that fight, and neither did Natalie from what she told me. In fact, she's the one who tried to convince you to back out, and you're the one who insisted on getting involved. I never wanted to get involved, It takes you a moment to sort through your thoughts, trying to make sense of your reckless actions last night. I just wanted to help out that kid, do the right thing. I didn't expect those guys would attack me when I stepped in, and I didn't expect them to react so harshly when they did. And I didn't expect myself to react so harshly when I did. I'm sorry about that. I really am. Don't be. You have nothing to apologize for. Again, the scientist's tone does a complete 180, sweeping you clean off your feet. You reacted like any righteous human would. Were our current times not so absolutely fucked? There's no shame in that. In fact, I dare say that you gave us a huge favor by intervening. We gained a lot of data throughout that whole debacle, which my team's already hard at work analyzing. I should be thanking you. Though your actions may have been illegal, they were also most definitely moral. Or at least, that's how I choose to interpret that for now. Time will tell whether that's truly the case or not, but I remain hopeful. You'd probably be smiling at the woman's reassuring words if Bradbury's theories from earlier weren't still haunting the recesses of your mind. But before you can tell your friend about that, there's still some other things you feel the need to point out to her. Even so, you should have told me about my current legal status before all this. Had I known the things Jasper revealed to me earlier, I likely would have hesitated before doing something so reckless. Hence, one of the reasons why I kept quiet about it. If you were still human, you'd probably have earned the record for most jaw drops in one conversation by now. So you did want me to defend that boy from those thugs. I never said anything of the sort. Don't start taking me too seriously now, Isaac. You're right to say that you likely would have thought twice about engaging those criminals if you knew all you know now. That is precisely why you needed to remain in the dark about all this. Ignorance isn't just bliss, it's freedom. Freedom to act however you please, without rules or contracts binding you to one will or the other. And you, out of your own free will, chose to support that young man in need without paying heed to all the bureaucratic nonsense that would have otherwise stopped you. Because even though you knew that self-defense is illegal for humans, your sense of selflessness was stronger than your doubts. The woman makes some valid, perhaps even inspiring points, but you know better than to simply take them at face value now. That's because you said the law no longer applied to me yesterday. That was only half the story. Had I known I was literally on my own out there, with everyone free to harass and hit me with impunity, with no chance for me to protect myself, I never would have exposed myself to danger like that. You're not defenseless, Isaac. I made sure of that. You immediately realize what the Siamese cat's referring to as soon as she says that. The taser in my tail? Among other things, your body and mind alike are more than prepared to deal with any would-be attacker. We have programmed your body to respond to stressful situations with the utmost precision, just like Natalie taught you to browse the web and check your status with your mind. Your body was taught to react to your thoughts the same way. You need only think of how you wish to protect yourself for your muscles to act. A secondary subroutine will fill in the gaps in your logic when necessary. So I'm not the one doing the fighting then. You are. Your body won't move without your authorization, and you won't do anything you did not wish to do to begin with. The best way to describe this system is more like an aim assist software in a shooter video game. Software may be the one doing all the aiming, but you're the one pulling the trigger. And here you thought your body couldn't possibly get any weirder. Not that the thought is any less reassuring to you, considering your grave circumstances, but it's at least somewhat funny to think about. So you're saying I'm cheating? Hello? You're synthetic! Your whole existence is a massive life hack. Either way, the system still needs some time to adjust to your commands, so expect it to become better and better with time, assuming it'll be necessary, of course. You sincerely hope that won't be the case. I'm still not sure how I feel about this. I never thought I'd need to actually fight to keep myself safe. Yo, the stream is just like freaking the fuck out right now. It's just freaking out. Can I like not do that? It's what you have to do given your circumstances, and I made sure that you were more than equipped to handle it. Just goes to show how much Jasper's talking out of his ass whenever he says that I'm not thinking ahead. He may think that I'm always 2 steps behind him, but that's because he can't see me staring down at him from the top of the stairs. Even you have to admit that Mary was more thoroughly prepared than she seemed at first glance. You're not sure whether she actually wanted you to end up in a fight or not, but she clearly had planned ahead to keep you safe in case the worst happened. You should all have your doubts about the way she chose to approach this, of course. You can't say you particularly appreciate her keeping secrets from you, even if it was for the sake of her research. However, as it currently stands, you have far more pressing concerns to worry about. What about Bradbury? Forget about him. He's just a little kid with too much power on his hands for his own good. You say that, but he said a lot of things to me earlier. A lot of really bad things. He said that he doesn't believe in my humanity. That I'm nothing more than a program. Big shocker. You can toss him into the doubter bin alongside all the other dumbasses out there. But we still don't have any evidence to prove him wrong with, do we? After some time spent thinking, the cat exhales a long sigh while she shakes her head. No, we do not have any proof of that for now. So then why... Look, we aren't going to get any definitive proof anytime soon. What we're looking for isn't as easily ascertainable as gravity or time. There's nothing you can do to get rid of your uncertainty in regards to your condition. What you can do, however, is change how you feel about it. How I feel about it? What does Mary mean when she says to change how you feel about it? Are you meant to feel right How are you meant to feel right now except completely lost? Given that you don't know whether you're human or not, there's only two things you can do. You can either hope that you are, or resign yourself to the belief that you're not. But why resign yourself to such a grim outlook when hope's still shining bright? Especially after what you pulled last night. You are human, Isaac. I believe that with all my heart. It's time you started believing that too. It takes a while for you to sort through your dazed thoughts, but ultimately, you cannot help but agree with the bright lady before you. Right now, when so much remains unknown and ever-changing, hope is your most prized possession, and you cannot let your fears and anxieties get rid of it while you worry over things you cannot change. Until you know for certain what you are, you're going to continue thinking and acting like the human you know you are. It's the least you can do to return the favor to Mary and all the others that work every day in order to provide it. Right. Thanks, Mary. Anytime, Isaac. Glad I could help clear some doubts. For real, though. Stay away from him, okay? Nothing good comes from hanging out with characters as shady as him. You don't have to tell me twice. I think I've got enough of him in half an hour to last me a lifetime. Yeah, I know the feeling. The woman shudders before you, likely recalling some unfortunate experiences she had with the devious St. Bernard. Either way, it's about time for me to leave as well. Huh? Where are you going? To a warehouse over in Chicago. We were storing some synthetic prototype bodies in there for testing purposes, but someone broke in last night and stole a handful of them. That's terrible! Who would do... Wait, why are you going there? Is checking up on the warehouse part of your duties? Mary suddenly starts flinging her arms around in the air, openly showing that she's just as bewildered as you are. Apparently! You can thank Jasper for that, by the way. Though I can see where he's coming from. The bodies didn't have any tracking devices on them, but we know what they look like, and I know all the tiny details that might help us find them. I think I might as well head there and see if there's anything I can do to help. You cannot help but wonder who in their right mind would try to steal synthetic bodies from Pandora. What could anyone even do with them? Without Pandora's expensive equipment, you don't believe anyone could effectively transition into them, unless they merely plan to scrap them for parts. Full of uncertainties as you are, you decide to forget about this whole thing for a moment and get back to your rapidly ending conversation with Mary. Well, I wish you good luck with that then. Hopefully you can recover those bodies sooner rather than later. Thanks, I appreciate it. As for you, I suggest you take the day off, so to speak. Find some quiet place to unwind from all the nonsense Bradbury tried to force in your head. But not here, sadly. Jasper's going to be back with the cleanup crew any moment now, so your apartment's going to be out of order until tonight at least. Yup, I thought so. I was hoping I could spend some time relaxing on my couch or something, but I guess I'm just going to wander around the city or something. Oh, don't be so dramatic. I'll hit up Natalie and have her contact you in a minute. I'm sure you two can cook up something together. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Thanks, Mary. No problem. Talk to you tomorrow, alright? Sounds good to me. Take care. With nothing left to say, the woman cheerfully leaves the apartment, followed soon after by you. By the time you've closed the door behind you, the cat has already disappeared up the stairs near the elevator. This whole building sure has been having a rough couple of days. First the elevator yesterday, now, well, everything really. Your morning was rougher than ever, too. Between Bradbury, Harlan, Jasper, and Mary just being themselves, you've barely had a moment to sit down and relax. And it doesn't look like you're going to find one even now, with your whole apartment going off limits in a few. What are you even supposed to be doing now? Staying here with Jasper, who's so furious with you, sounds like a terrible idea, but leaving the condo sounds even worse. You've nowhere to go and nothing to do. Today's really not your day, it seems. However, before you can fully sink into your despair and confusion, a familiar voice starts chirping in your head. I'm here, I'm here! The Labrador's huffs and puffs can be heard even from where you stand, much to your surprise. I'm sorry, I overslept. It's alright, Nats. Jesus, scared the life out of me. The canine really has a knack for calling you without any sort of forewarning. You have a feeling these occurrences will only become more common as you spend more time together. Oh my gosh, today's just been a mess. First, my alarm doesn't wake me up, then Mary calls me saying that you're in trouble. And now I found out you were jumped by the FBI themselves. And to top it all off, I almost managed to kill you on call. Again. You're being a tad dramatic now, come on. But it's true that some FBI agents did come to visit me. Can't say that was fun. The dog gasps upon hearing you confirm her suspicions, with the worry in her voice now more evident than ever. Oh no, that sounds terrible. It was. It really was. But it's all over now, thanks to Mary and Jasper. Natalie gasps again upon hearing you mention those names, this time in surprise. Wow, Mr. Morgan came to help you himself? That's amazing! I thought he didn't like you all that much. He doesn't. He was just worried about Pandora's reputation again. Ah, I see. Your friend sounds a little dejected, almost as if she'd hoped the CEO had reevaluated his opinions on synthetics since his last meeting. But you, more than anyone, know that changing people's minds is a far more difficult process than it seems at first glance. And speaking of people who won't be so easily dissuaded, say, what's up? How much do you know about the FBI? The FBI? The worry in the girl's voice turns to simple uncertainty upon hearing your question. Yeah, I was approached by an agent called Bradbury today. A St. Bernard-looking dog, real shady fellow. And not only that, he was joined by Synthetic. And a strange one at that. I've never seen anything like it before. I see. The Labrador ponders your question for some time, but ultimately can't come up with anything other than a defeated sigh. Sorry to disappoint, but I don't know much of anything on those guys, aside from the fact that they have some influence on the upper echelons of Pandora. Mary seems to hate them a great deal, but other than a few insults she slings their way every once in a while, she never really talks about them. Aside from that, all I know about them is common knowledge. That's okay. I'm thankful for your help nonetheless. No problem. Still, I agree that it's strange that they had a synthetic with them. You think it's one of ours? I think Bradbury more or less confirmed it during our conversation at some point. Moreover, it also explained why Jasper and Mary barely reacted to it when they saw him. You definitely have a lot of questions you need to ask Mary the next time you see her. You never told her about Bradbury's suspicions about their hidden agenda either. Your next talk together sounds like it'll be fun. What's this? What's what? You have an unread message from a guy called Apollo. It was sent from someone in your building about half an hour ago. Noticing the woman's confusion, you immediately try to dispel her doubts. That's the lamb that I rescued yesterday. He lives a few floors above me. We're friends now. Ah, so that's it. I was pretty surprised for a second. I thought I'd need to wait at least a couple more weeks before you shared your number with someone. In your heart, you know Natalie's merely happy that you could find a friend you could trust after all the trouble you've been having recently. But in your head, that kind of sounded like a diss for a second. You're definitely overthinking things again. We should probably get back to the important things before you say something stupid again. So, what's the message about? Oh right, you don't know how to access that yet. Here, let me read it for you. He just asked if you could come visit him before noon. He has a favor to ask you. A favor? Did he specify what it was about? Nope. The wording's as vague as can be. That is pretty weird, or would be had it come from anyone other than him. Given all his memory troubles he has to deal with, he probably forgot what he needed your help with before he hit send. Well, only one way to find out. With the elevator still busted from the EMP earlier, you head towards the stairs instead, climbing the many ramps that separate your floor from Apollo's with your curiosity nagging at the back of your head. What could Apollo need from you all of a sudden? Is he somehow in trouble again? No, that sounds unlikely. He probably just needs help finding the bathroom or something. Okay, maybe that was a little mean. Trying not to come up with any more jokes that poke fun at your Caprine friend, you continue your trek through the building until you reach the apartment you were looking for. And we're going to leave off here tonight. I love that. Nah, Nats is just built different. I fucking love this music. I cannot think of anything to say, so stay safe, have a good night, and I will see y'all tomorrow.